There's a flood emergency across parts of the state tonight after record rainfall hit already full catchments, causing flash flooding, flight cancellations and evacuations. Late this afternoon, a warning to evacuate immediately was issued for Rochester in the state's north. Evacuation orders have also been issued for parts of Seymour in central Victoria, where up to 200 properties could be flooded, and further south in the town of Yea for houses in low-lying areas. There are major warnings for towns close to rivers such as the Campaspe, Yea and Goulburn, and flooding is expected in Wangaratta and Shepparton midweek. Records have been broken with heavy rainfall in Rochester, Redesdale and Bendigo. Heathcote had 184 millimetres, which isn't just a daily record, but that's the amount of rain the area would normally get in 3 months in just 24 hours. Relief centres have been set up in Bendigo, Shepparton, Yea and Echuca at these locations for people who have evacuated, and the Premier will hold an emergency cabinet meeting tonight. Our reporter Mike Lorrigan joins us now live from Seymour. Mike, what's the latest where you are?
Well, there is still an emergency warning in place here for Seymour. It's been in place for much of the day, and as you can see behind me, there is floodwater that is really filling the low-lying areas around the town. This is water that has come from the Goulburn River. It's broken its banks. Behind me you can see this is one of the 200 properties here in Seymour which has been at risk of being impacted by floodwater. One of 200. There are 50 here in Seymour that are really at risk of first floor flooding. And I'll just move the camera to the left here. The water is on the move in Seymour. It's coming across roads, and just for some context, on the other side of this road there is a red gate, some red poles. A year ago, just over a year ago in the floods of 2022, the water was above that point, essentially a metre higher than what it is now, and the water does feel like it's receding. Quite oddly, there is blue sky here in Seymour, but what is clear, there is a huge amount of water that has fallen and it is now on the move. Just 15 months after floods devastated central Victoria, this is what communities feared the most. It's now too late to leave Yea, where floodwaters are lapping at the leaves of trees. At Gornong, northeast of Bendigo, the Ferguson Bridge, which sits over the Campaspe River, is completely submerged, a torrent now obscuring the town sign, leaving livestock seeking higher ground and residents knee-deep in water as they survey the damage.
It was higher than every other flood I've ever seen. Yeah, the last one was pretty high, but this was worse. It's like there's no outlet down there.
In the past 24 hours, unprecedented levels of rain has deluged central Victoria. 117 millimetres at Redesdale and 184 millimetres was recorded at Heathcote.
Water's risen here, risen to in front of where our shop here is on High Street. It would have been at least a metre deep.
I'll give you some information. It's not great news, unfortunately.
Tomorrow, Rochester is in the firing line. Major flooding there is possible after the town received 126 millimetres of rain. Lee Wilson's mother, Lorraine, is still living in her caravan while recovering from last year's floods, which damaged her home.
For hundreds of homes still in Rochester are gutted and haven't been repaired from the 2022 flood. And so for those people, I can only imagine it's a sheer level of either desperation or devastation.
But there's also been frustration. Since Sunday, the State Emergency Service has received more than 1,200 calls for help, including 38 rescues.
And in the majority of cases, it's people taking their lives in their own hands and attempting to drive through flash flood waters.
Cars don't float for very long, and they end up causing serious risk to people in them and can potentially cause loss of life. So please listen to the warnings and don't drive through floodwater.
Staying safe and alert.
Mike, there's so much water around, but you mentioned the blue skies above you. What conditions are we expecting over the next 24 hours?
Well, it certainly feels like this massive rain event is over, and now this has moved to flooding and riverine flooding. Where we are, all this water here in Seymour is heading downstream. That is likely to impact places like Shepparton, Wangaratta over the coming days. And as you've just heard in that report before, Places like Rochester over the next 24 hours are going to be significantly affected. An emergency warning is in place there, and we're expecting to see major flooding in Rochester over the next sort of 24 hours and into tomorrow. Gippsland as well. The rain event has just moved over the east of the state in Gippsland. A huge amount of rain has fallen there, and we're likely to see significant riverine flooding. Really, there is almost every catchment across north and northeast of Victoria is on flood watch tonight, and this is still playing out, this flooding emergency across Victoria. Isk.
Mike Lorigan in Seymour, stay safe, stay dry.